It's really amazing, that physical, spiritual communication that happens when you're talking, holding hands, and that you really come across through that. And yes, we can understand each other. And when we do that, then we can start to figure out compromises. What happened with that discussion about the ministry between my husband and I was that, and Rory just said this talk to mention compromises. I got to say what it was I felt I needed, and he got to say what he felt he needed. And then we figured out how we were going to meet each other's needs. How was I going to get my needs met, and how was he going to get his needs? We talked about when I was going to travel with him and when I was not, when we would have people to the house and when we would not. And we really clarified a lot of things, which made it a lot easier. But the one I promised I'd talk to you about today is the Esther Method. If you remember the story in the Bible, in the book of Esther, about Queen Esther, she was the queen of Persia, and she'd been taken to the harem, or to the king's palace, as a young girl, and the king had picked her as his wife. And then her uncle Mordecai was a leader at the gates of the city, or the palace there, and he was hearing all the news. And one day he passed a message to the servants that were working with Esther, and said, tell Queen Esther that there's really a big problem, and this is what it is. The king has decided that on a certain day he's going to kill all the Jewish people. Well, the king didn't know that Queen Esther was a Jew. She kept that to herself and prayed to God herself. But that meant, too, that he was going to kill her. Now, there's some interesting little niches in this. First off, one could not just go into the king and talk to him anytime one wanted to. One was supposed to be summoned into his presence. So Queen Esther said to Mordecai, what do you want me to do? I can't just go in and talk to him. I'm supposed to be summoned to go in and talk to him. And her uncle said, maybe you've been put here for such a time as this. So this is what Queen Esther did. She prayed and fasted for 3 days. She prayed about this situation. And then finally, with God's courage and God's power behind her, she dressed up all nice and pretty, and she walked into the king. And she stood at the back of the room, and the king looked up, and he motioned her to come to him. And he says, what can I do for you? She didn't just blurt out her problem, which many of us want to do. We want to blurt out the problem and say, you're doing this, you're doing that, but you. She said, I would like to invite you and your advisor, your senior advisor, to come to dinner with me tomorrow night. Something very easy for him to say yes to. He did. He said yes to it. He had his advisor, Haman, come to the dinner. And at the end of the dinner, the king said, what can I do for you, my queen? And she said, would the two of you please return for dinner tomorrow night? Well, God had worked it all out. And there was a big scene. Haman was trying to get the queen to not do something. And when the king had walked out, it turned out that the king really then found out what the queen wanted. And because he couldn't reverse his edict about what was going to happen on a certain day to kill all the Jews, he made a new one that allowed the Jewish people to raise up arms to protect themselves so they would not be killed. So as I was praying about this story, God showed me how we could actually do this ourselves. And how could we use Queen Esther's situation to solve our own problems? First off, I want you to pray, fast if God leads you that way, but pray for 1 or 2 days before you bring up the topic. Often, I'd take something I wanted to talk to my husband about, and he was working 12-hour days. By the time he got home, he was exhausted. So I'd write my problem on a sticky note, and I'd write them all down there, and because I was going to talk to him about it on Friday on our date night, or Saturday when we had a date. But by the time I prayed about them, God would show me an answer, or there would be something else that I could do to solve it, and I didn't have to talk about it with my husband. But there were those times that we really did have to talk about them. So what do? Pray. Pray at least a day, 24 hours. Pray. Fast if God leads you that way. And then second, select a night when the two of you can be free and alone without the children. That's why I said I saved up my problems until date night. How are you going to get the kids? Can you put them to bed early? They're going to be out at youth group. Going to stay with a friend, going to stay with a neighbor, going to be out swimming. be at the football game. How can you have some time alone without the children? Plan that. So time alone without the children, and for a dinner, for an in-depth conversation. And then you want to plan. Then the next is you're putting the children to bed to get them out of the house. That's number 3. And then number 4, you want to feed your man one of his favorite meals. Make it easy. Don't spend all day cooking so you're exhausted. My guy often liked pizza, or we could go out for a steak dinner, or we could go to our favorite fast food restaurant, and we could sit and eat without the kiddos. It was a great time to talk. After you eat, not before you eat, and not during the meal, then you can bring up your topic. But before you bring up your topic, I want you to do several things. This is during your time of prayer and fasting. I want you to think about, what do you really want? You know what the problem is. What do you really want? And I know I've talked to some of my coaching clients about what do they want. They say they want this. I say, well, what if he doesn't want that? Because you're saying he wants this, and you know what you want. Is there a middle ground? What are you willing to go towards? What are you willing to work towards? What portion are you doing? So come up with an idea that you think might work for the two of you. Use your creative thought. Use this time of prayer. Use God's insights. Talk to a Christian mentor, a Christian woman that you admire. And get God's insights of how you might solve the problem. What are you going to do? How could you do that? And then, recognizing that it may not be his choice, I want you to also come up with a second option that you would be okay with. It's not your favorite one, your first one, but it's your second one. Some of the things I've heard girls talk about with their husbands is they talk about where they want to go on vacation. And she knows she wants to go here, but she also knows he really doesn't want to go there. So she brings up what she wants to do. I would really like to go here, and I've heard you say you don't really want to do, this is why I want to go here. She's talking about herself. I want to go here. This is using I statement. This is why I want to go here. This is how I think we can have the money to do this and the time to do this. Now, if you don't like that idea, I do have a second option. And that maybe we could go, maybe one's out of state and one's in state. Maybe we could go here to this water park with the kids. I'd really enjoy that, and we could just spend the night with family, and it wouldn't cost us much. And we wouldn't have to go out of state. We wouldn't have to take an airplane ticket or whatever. But she comes up with a second idea. One of our big ones was talking about whether we were going to homeschool our kids, our 2 little kids, and they were ADHD. And that was a biggie for me. We had to talk about how we were going to do that, how I was going to do that, what help he was going to get. And the fact I had to do some reading and research to learn what in heck was involved in homeschooling these little kiddos. And once I learned, okay, if we're going to do it, I'm going to need this kind of curriculum, I'm going to need this kind of support. And so we're talking about what we do. So we put the kids to bed. You're bringing up, you've thought about this ahead of time. What do you want? And how can he meet your needs? Don't just come up with just the problem. Don't have your dinner until you have figured out a possible way to solve it. Why? Because otherwise you're just blaming him. And you're just like, you. In other words, think of this like a board meeting. And you're one of the vice presidents, manager of a large portion of this thing. And you need to bring up this idea of something you think would be really good for the company. But you know that the boss isn't quite on board with you. How can you bring it up in a way so that it would interest him and meet his needs? What is it he can do? With that going out of state or going to the water park with the kids and staying with family, one of the ways that thing could meet my husband's needs is the second way my husband got to see his family too, which really met his needs. He wanted to see his family. But he also wanted to do something with us as a family. How do we do these things? We have to be able to do it with love and concern. Tell him what you want. Use I statements. I feel, I want, and I think. Such as, I feel hurt because you don't come home for dinner on time. It makes me think I'm not wanted, I'm not loved. I would really like you to come home. I want to eat dinner together as a family. But I understand that with your job, that's not always possible. I my idea at this point is that the kids and I can have dinner at 6 o'clock, and I will save your dinner. It'll be warm. It'll be hot on the stove, and after dinner, I'll make a plate for you and put it in the refrigerator. You can heat up later in the microwave. But anytime you can get home for dinner, I would love it. Now, I haven't accused him of not being home for dinner. I've given him my hurt, my feelings, how I feel ignored, left alone. But I haven't said, you make me feel left alone. We're not important to you to come home enough. You don't want us to do this, and you don't want us to do that. I said, this is how I feel, and this is how I want to solve this situation. And then with a loving way, encourage him, I want you to be home. It's much easier for my husband to get home when he knows he's wanted. Even if he gets home 15 minutes, half an hour later. I know, oh, I'm so glad you made it home. We finished dinner and I've got a plate for you. I'll heat it up in the microwave and sit down and talk with you. Much better than yelling at him because he couldn't get home.